Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, my guest is Tanya Hackney. Is that how you say that?
Tanya Hackney.
So, thanks for joining us on the podcast. So you're down in the Key West or the Keys. So, how's everything down there?
Everything is beautiful. I'm here in a cozy little canal tied up for hurricane season.
Uh,
Hopefully we'll be okay. We're on a 48-foot catamaran, and the boat is currently in the Middle Keys in Marathon.
oh, is that okay? Okay. So, no, beautiful area down there. So, is there? I mean, I've heard something about a hurricane forming, or is there something like that going on down there? Or
There's always something
is
forming
there?
between June and November. Yep, pretty much
Okay.
always. So we watch the weather, and we're weather junkies.
I bet.
So yeah, we
So, are
kind of track things. We're in a place where boats did really well during Hurricane Irma in 2017.
okay.
An Irma situation is kind of a worst case scenario. So we would either not want to be here tied up. We would want to be tied up in the mangroves somewhere or out of this area,
Okay.
or we would try and choose a location that give us the best chance of keeping the boat safe. If we were to have a really bad hurricane, I would evacuate with the kids and the cats, and then Jay would decide whether or not he wanted to stay with the boat or come with us. We've weathered 6 named storms on our boat. Tropical storms, never more than a tropical storm, and I've
I'm with
been
you.
there, done that, and anything more than 50 knots of wind, I kind of want off the boat.
I don't blame you. How strong is 50 knots miles per hour?
It's a little bit stronger because a nautical mile is slightly
Oh, is that
longer than a yeah. It's tied to the grid system, the latitude and longitude. So a nautical mile is exactly a 60th of a degree. So
okay?
I
Cool.
know it's kind of weird nautical trivia.
Okay. So, are you native to that area?
My husband and I grew up in Naples, Florida. We rode the school bus together actually in
Oh,
high school. So we're high school sweethearts, and we went off sailing together with our kids. And we've come back over the years. We lived in Atlanta for a little while, but when we came back to follow our sailing dreams, we came back to the Clearwater area. So we've
beautiful.
been in and around Florida much of our lives. Our
Okay.
kids would consider Marathon their hometown because this is a place where when we're passing through either east coast to west coast of Florida or the other direction or back and forth from the Bahamas, or even when we did, our big circle of the Caribbean, this is the place we left, and it's the place where we came back to close the circle.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
So we have long-term friendships here, which is kind of a rare thing in a nomadic lifestyle.
I
So
bet.
this would be like a home base for the people we love, and then our families are still in Naples.
Okay. Nice. So, the path from on the school bus to where you are now. I mean, what was that path?
Crazy, right? Well, I wrote an entire book about it, so I can't give it to you in that amount of detail, but I can
Okay.
give you sort of the rough outline. My husband had grown up sailing and he loved boats, and we had gone on a sailing trip as newlyweds after we dated long distance during college and then got married and then took this
Uh-huh.
sailing trip, and I loved it. It was just this really, really magical week that we spent with his parents, who also were sailors.
Oh, really? Cool. That's cool.
Yep, it's very cool. Something that we got to share with them over the years,
Yeah.
where we would buddy boat together out to the Dry Tortugas, or they would meet us over in the Bahamas. So that's
Nice.
been really fun to have that thing in common. And but we didn't really know how to break out of the box, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. We had been raised in very very typical middle class lifestyle, and
Okay.
we did the thing that we were supposed to do. We went off to college. We got married. We bought a house with a white picket fence. We had
Oh,
jobs.
oh,
We had a we
there's
we were successful enough that my husband had this little Porsche that he drove on the
oh,
weekends.
nice.
Yeah, so in a sense, I'm really grateful that we were successful like that early on, because what we learned from that success is that it did not make us happy. So we did all the normal things that make people, well, that we perceived that made people
Sure.
happy. We had the American dream,
Right.
and we started to realize that what that meant was when you grow out of your starter house, you buy a bigger house,
Yep.
and you get a nicer car, and you put your kids in private school and you move further outside the perimeter away, into the suburbs. And then you buy a bigger house and a bigger car and you save more money. And we
Yep.
we looked at that and like, well, you just keep working,
You do.
forever, taking vacations. And then when you're probably too old to enjoy it, then
Yep.
you travel, or
Yeah.
because life intervenes. Like maybe you have ailing
Oh yeah.
parents that you have to take care of, or maybe by the time you have your children, maybe you have, a special needs kid that you may have to take care of for the rest of your, like, you don't know what's
You
going
do.
to happen in the intervening years from when you bought your starter home and had your first good job
Yep.
to when you get to retire.
Yeah.
So I often say this. I think that the American dream can turn into an American nightmare, especially when, in order to get it, you're going deeply, deeply into debt.
Yes.
So my husband and I already like began to do that U-turn even while we lived in the house with the white picket fence. We
Uh-huh.
got ourselves out of debt because we didn't want to be trapped by it.
Yes.
We did a U-turn and we actually left the city and went back to Florida
Okay.
where our families were, and my husband began to work for himself, build his own business that he was eventually able to take with us wherever we went. So he became what you might call now a digital nomad.
Yeah. That's
Uh-huh.
the work wherever.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been great. I mean, he works all the time. So the myth about when you work from home, which I think a lot of people have discovered since the pandemic, is
Uh,
you're never really at home because you're always kind of at work. So,
you
uh,
are.
yeah, on
Yeah.
the other hand, you're not 100% at work. You can also engage at home and engage with your
Yep.
family. So
Yep.
it takes a special person to be able to strike that balance and to be able to
Uh,
focus,
yeah.
on work
Yeah.
while you're at home and to focus on your family while you're not actually working.
Yes. Yeah, because when the work's there, it's always available for you to do if you want to, and it's like, well, maybe I should do some work then. So, yeah, yeah, it does take a special
Yeah.
person. Sure. So this
Yeah.
is
And,
cool.
yeah.
You still there?
Yep. I'm still there. You
Okay.
glitched a little, but
Okay. No, I just said that was cool, and it does take a special person. Yeah, you guys you're on the way, so that's pretty awesome. Where you could work anywhere. So what was
yeah.
next then?
So we made a 5-year plan. We had bought a little. We had traded the Porsche essentially for a little sailboat. We got rid of the Porsche and we bought a little 22-foot sailboat, which we took out on the weekends. I had quit teaching at this point. I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. We had 3 kids under the age of 4, and we would take them out sailing on Tampa Bay.
Oh, no.
And yep, that was part of the plan. And then we had this elaborate plan that had lots of steps to get us onto a boat.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized that it was taking a really long time, and that when we made our 5-year plan, we ended up skipping all the middle steps. We found this 48-foot catamaran called
Oh,
Take Two, which is the boat
oh yeah.
from which we are filming
Uh huh.
or recording here.
Uh huh.
And we drove over to Fort Lauderdale with the kids. At that point, we then had a 4th kid at the end of this 5-year plan.
Okay.
We drove across to Fort Lauderdale, took a look at the boat, felt really, really good about it. Actually, we felt a little freaked out about it, but we really loved the boat. Yeah, it's a little bit like falling in love. There's kind of that roller coaster, butterflies in the stomach feeling. You know that this is the thing you want to do, but you're also terrified of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know that feeling well, and usually that is the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, fear is there to keep you alive, but
Yep,
if you completely use it to operate and make every decision, it will actually keep you from living.
it will.
So,
It
so
definitely
we
will.
did a lot of things that we were afraid of, essentially.
Doing it afraid. Yep.
Yeah, so we bought a 48-foot wooden catamaran, and we moved aboard with 4 kids under the age of 8, and
Okay.
then we went sailing. We went sailing. We sailed away.
Right.
We did it in baby steps, so I'm giving it to you in the fastest form, but it was long and it was hard and it was not all of it was fun. A lot of it was fun. And then we traveled to the Bahamas, and the first season that we were like really out and free, and we came
Uh huh.
back and had a baby. And so we,
Okay.
in between renovating this old wooden sailboat, homeschooling 5 kids, working from home, uh, we've now been on this adventure for 15 years.
Wow. So quite a while now then. Okay, I mean that talk about a new normal, but so it's probably all probably easy now.
Oh no, no, no. It's never easy. A few
No,
weeks
that's true.
ago, no, a few weeks ago we had to move the boat from one slip to another. They're getting ready to work on the dock. And I realized that it had been a while since we'd moved. We have
Uh,
teenagers now that are launching, and so they have cars and jobs and
right,
friends.
right.
And we've been on this seawall for a while, just trying to, and I'm driving back and forth to Naples to visit the elderly parents. We had a loss in the family last year. So we're kind of stationary for a while. And I realized it had been a while since we moved the boat. And I was so nervous when we had to untie the lines. And
Uh,
literally, all we had to do was back out of our slip, turn the boat around, and then back into a new slip. And it was terrifying. We did just fine.
mm-hmm.
We like riding a bike, we remembered all of our skills, and our teenage crew is really helpful, and they,
Cool.
everybody did what they were supposed to do, and we, moved our giant boat without hitting anything, without damaging anything. So that
Always good.
was reaffirming, okay, we can still do this. But I have to tell you, like every time we untie it and start moving, I have that roller coaster butterflies in the stomach feeling. I mean, you don't go out onto the ocean without a little bit of respect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that I'm sure of. I can't imagine on that. So, but and isn't it interesting? Like, you know how to do it, but you're still hesitant. It's like why? I suppose it's your subconscious again. It's like protecting you. I don't know why that is, but it is.
You have to coach yourself through a lot of things in life where you're like, no, no,
True.
no. Remember, we did this before
Yeah.
and we survived.
I know how to do this.
Remember, we know how to do this. Go, you can do this, and you have to constantly coach yourself. I do.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I'm
me too.
maybe I'm the crazy one, but
Daily. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It is something that I think anybody that hasn't done the kind of your lifestyle or just where you're not doing the traditional doesn't realize that it's because I had somebody the other day say, "Well, this is so easy for you," and it's like, "Oh, I wouldn't say that." It is. It's a making the choice daily, sometimes hourly. So,
yeah. And humans are social creatures. They are biologically a social species, and we do a lot of things by groupthink.
yep.
And when you put a for sale sign in your yard and people say, "Oh, where are you guys moving?" and we say, "Oh, well, we're moving on to our sailboat." I mean, you get a lot of pushback from that.
Oh
People,
yeah.
well, they're curious.
Yep.
Some people think that that's a great idea, and other people think that we're crazy. And they ask,
Mm-hmm.
well, what about your kids? What about sharks? What about pirates? What about, and the what if questions start, which of course we had to deal with too. Like, what are the real dangers of this lifestyle and how can we mitigate those risks? But nobody asked the other what if questions like, what if this is amazing? What if this transforms our
Exactly.
lives? What if our kids learn another language? And what if they meet people from all over the world in all walks of
Yep.
life?
Yep.
What if this is a transformative experience for our family and
Yes.
we have, the time of our lives, and then what if we die with no regret? How amazing would that be?
That's the ultimate. That is because that's very rare. The majority, and all the stuff that you would have missed out on, like you said, with no regrets if you hadn't tried. So,
Yeah,
no,
we have to ask the what if questions. And some of
we
the
do.
things that we do are dangerous. They are inherently dangerous.
Yeah,
But you could like live a safe life and listen to that voice of, don't go outside the box, don't rock the boat, and be completely bored your entire life. And I don't know, we looked at the risks and we looked at the rewards and we said we think it's going to be worth it. And so
yep,
we did it.
yeah,
And it was worth it. It was worth it. I can
yeah.
tell you, like I've now been doing it long enough. My kids have grown up on this boat. We've had these amazing experiences. My 22-year-old, he'll be 22 in July,
Okay,
said to me recently, because I'm always probing their memory, like, a parent
sure.
is, you don't know if you did a good job or not until the end, and you're like, was it as
Yeah,
bad as I remember? Like, what do you remember about this experience? Did I
uh,
ruin your life? And he said, actually, it wasn't just the fun things that he remembers. He actually is now grateful for some of the hardships.
yep.
Learning to live without air conditioning in a hot place, especially, if it's a rainy night and you have to close all the hatches and you're rolling around in your own sweat and you're in the tropics. And
Yeah,
like some of the discomforts,
yep.
like a storm at sea, just traveling can be a hardship, just, not
Wait,
knowing where you're going and not knowing who you're going to meet and being lonely sometimes.
yep.
He said he was grateful even for those hard things. And I did not expect him to say that, but he said it had made him a tougher, better person.
Yeah, and I can see where he's coming from on that. So, and that's awesome. So is he what direction is he going? Is he entrepreneurial then? So with that, with your up with his upbringing there, or with what you've
It's
done?
it's been interesting. Well, it's been interesting to watch each of their paths. So we have 5 kids. When we started, they were 10 and under.
Okay.
When the youngest was born, my oldest was 10, and we had been traveling for a couple years at that point. They're now ranging in age from 22 down to 12. The youngest one, was born while we lived on this boat and has never lived anywhere else. Uh, my oldest two are completely out of the house. So none of them wanted to take on student debt. And so the
I'm
choices
good.
that they've made, yeah, choices that they've made have been interesting. We didn't really know what they would do. I had a very traditional private 4-year college that I went to, and then my husband went to Georgia Tech but dropped
Oh,
out.
okay.
And is entrepreneurial. And so they've kind of seen the possibilities of both paths, and they've all taken their completely own trajectory. The oldest one finished a 2-year degree. All 3 of them went to the College of the Florida Keys with the Florida dual enrollment program. They basically got 2 free years of college, which has
Nice.
been amazing.
Yeah.
So all 3 of them, the oldest kids have a 2-year degree. The oldest one is now working for my brother's painting company, commercial painting company in Naples, and he lives in a rental with his cousins, and he
Nice.
seems very happy. He is writing a second novel. He's a writer,
Oh wow.
and he's my writing buddy, and so I get the sneak peek on this science fiction novel that he's writing, and we meet
Wow.
up weekly and read each other's work, which is really
That is
cool. He's got
love
a
that.
great imagination. I hope that he publishes this one. The last one he wrote as a teenager, and it needs a lot of editing, and I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe he'll go back and revisit that one. But the
Yeah.
second one is much better. It's a much better book, and I'd love to see him publish it. He's still kind of figuring out, we thought we could save them the angst of young adulthood, where, if you homeschool your kids, there's this myth that you can really set them on a good path and that they'll know what they want to do. But actually, what I've discovered is that the angst of young adulthood is kind of a necessary part of growing up.
I would
We
agree.
can save them from making maybe the mistakes that we made, but we
Yep.
can't save them from the mistakes that they need to make in order to be successful. So
True.
they're in the middle of their own, their own experiments. My
Mistakes.
second son decided he did not want an academic education. He's the tinkerer. He's the one who
Okay.
helped my husband fix engines, and
Oh wow.
he really likes mechanical things. And so he went off to a technical school in Orlando. He's getting ready to graduate. And then he's headed for Mercedes Benz in Jacksonville. He was
Ah,
selected for the Mercedes Benz program. So he'll,
awesome.
by the time he's 22, he'll be able to fix almost any kind of vehicle, which is a really cool thing to be
That
able
is.
to do.
I mean, that unbelievable. That's so cool.
Yeah, he loves to fix things, and he's got an old Ford truck that he's been tinkering on, and that's what he drives around. Every time he has a school break, he takes something apart, puts it all back
Mhm.
together again.
That is neat. So, okay, you talk about you have written a book or writing a book.
I'm writing a second book.
Second,
The first book was a memoir about this experience, kind of taking the story from the time that I was riding the school bus until right up
oh, really?
until we came
Okay.
back from the Caribbean in 2019. And I shared not just the physical journey, but also the metaphysical journey, the things that were going on inside our heads as we were, making this giant leap, and how that experience transformed us. It's not really a how-to book,
Okay.
unless you think maybe how we pursued our dreams, how we turned an idea into reality. And in that way, even if someone reads it, they're not maybe interested in going out on the ocean, but it's a book that could show you that anything is possible,
Yes. Amen.
and the sort of the steps that it takes to turn a dream into reality.
Yes. That's so important. Yeah, because it's all possible, and if you lay the groundwork for them, that's even better. So that is so cool. So, how long has that book been out?
That came out in October of 2021. It won a few
Okay.
awards,
Huh.
and it hit a couple of bestseller lists, which was really exciting because I had almost no expectation for a first book. It was my, first attempt. I am a writer, have been a writer my whole life. I
Okay.
was, like blogging about our experience all those years, but I was homeschooling 5 kids, so I didn't really have the
Yeah.
time, the time and to dedicate to a longer narrative. So when
Yep.
we came back, I'm actually kind of grateful for the pandemic, if you can imagine, I being grateful for a
Yep.
difficult thing.
Yep.
It forced us to hold still for a little while. And when I couldn't travel physically, I was traveling back through those memories. And so that was a great solace to me during 2019 and
Yeah.
2020 when we came back and I was grieving sort of the loss of this traveling lifestyle. It was time to settle down for a little while. We're still on the boat, but we've been stationary,
Okay.
but helping the teenagers and the parents and like just the stage of life that we're in.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was wonderful to be able to relive those memories by writing about them.
That is. So okay. So your second book, what is that going to be about, or what is that about?
Um, we had a really hard couple of years. There was a really sad loss in our family last year. Jay's stepmom, Mary, his dad and Mary were the couple that we sailed with
Oh.
our,
Oh.
on our newlywed trip. Yeah, and have traveled with them over the years. We're very close to
Yeah.
Jay's dad and his stepmom, Mary, and she got pancreatic cancer
Oh.
last year. And so she got sick. She got diagnosed in February. She started treatment in March. We took a trip in May to take my daughter, Sarah, she's the number 3 kid who was
Oh.
18 at the time, out to Colorado. She worked at a dude ranch for the summer. And we
Okay.
did this, yes, we did this wonderful trip with her. And then Mary was gone by October. In October, I sat and held her hand at hospice for 5 days,
Mm.
while she crossed through that valley of the shadow of death. And it was really hard. And there were some other losses that year. And
Yeah.
so my writing shifted pretty dramatically from the book that I was writing, the second book that will probably end up being the third book, into a devotional, a daily devotional. I
Oh.
needed the daily solace of my spiritual practice, which is to get up every morning and
Yeah.
read and pray and exercise. I have a morning routine, so I'm
Okay.
writing the kind of book. It's actually a book that I would want to read, but it's my daily thoughts about the Bible and the way that God speaks to me. And then I would love to pay that forward. So I'm
Okay.
doing short essays every day, life
I love.
lessons, and I'm
No.
turning all of that hard stuff into comfort, both for myself and hopefully for others.
That's so amazing. I love that. I mean that, and I mean, cancer's bad, but pancreatic cancer, there's one that's, and no, I'm glad you're doing that because there's that's just, you just never know when something like that comes up. That's why you got to live for today. So
Yeah, I think that was a really not I wouldn't say a wake up call or an eye opener. I think I looked at that. Mary was very young. She was 59.
wow,
We
she,
were not yeah, we were not expecting that was we thought we were going to have her forever. The old
right.
folks were all going to die off and Mary and I were going to go traveling.
Huh.
She was an Allegiant flight attendant and so she had all these
Oh,
flying
wow.
benefits. Yeah, and she was like, I'm going to need a travel buddy someday and I'm like, "Oh, me, pick me." And
Yeah,
we were really close. And so, we have these expectations about things. We make these grand plans,
we do.
and in the end, you just don't know. And so, that fragility has really made me appreciate everything. I never hang up the phone without saying how, that I love someone. I
Yeah,
never leave the room,
do
or
it.
when I leave home, or when my kids are going off to youth group or work or something, I always shout, "I love you." Like I want the last words that someone hears from me to be, "I love you, I care about you." I
Yes.
don't I don't want to leave anything unsaid or unfinished. I don't want to have some big ugly fight and then somebody goes off and has a car accident. So I'm kind of very mindful about how the power of our words and that they might be our last words.
And they definitely could be. That's such a bless. That's one blessing that came out of that, and it's a blessing anytime you realize that, you know, if you love somebody, tell them right now, or do it now. I mean, You don't want to have the talking about regrets that you didn't, because
Yeah, I don't buy birthday presents anymore. We were really not big gift givers. We kind of transitioned from giving gifts and material things to making memories with our kids. That was one thing that we did on
yes,
the boat. But if I have a friend and I'm out shopping and I see something that, something small that makes me think of them or I think they would like it, I just buy it and then I give it to them because I don't like stash things away for a birthday. So I give unbirthday presents.
I think
Do
that's
it
awesome.
now. I'm always the kind of like,
Yep,
well, let's do it now. If someone wants to have lunch, I'm like, how's tomorrow? Like,
yep,
let's do it tomorrow. The sooner the
yes.
better. Let's be spontaneous because you don't know that uncertainty. I don't
No,
want to say it's made me jumpy or pessimistic, but it's made me realize that we don't have time to waste.
no. Like when we talked before with my wife and her cancer, it gives you clarity. You know what is
Mm,
important, and you just know that, like that day, with you just never know. And when you get a diagnosis like that, it brings definitely brings clarity in what's important, and to do that, to do it now. So, and if
so
that's
how
what
did for you when you guys walked through her treatment, how did it crystallize your dream? How did you know, like, did you know
uh,
what you wanted to do then?
before that, we kind of thought about it. We were kind of not on this path. We were kind of like some days, and we're going to do this. We were more doing the traditional. You know, we'd gone to college, and we actually been entrepreneurial. Working for ourselves most of our life, but we just never did take more than one vacation, and we always were saving, and all this stuff. And that day that, because we were actually going to go, it was our 25th wedding anniversary. We were going to go on a trip, so we were getting physicals and everything, and there was no sign she even had cancer, and it was advanced colon cancer.
Wow.
And that day when they told me to come back, and she'd been there since the beginning of the morning, and I knew that couldn't be good. So then they had her. They took about a foot of her colon out, and that they thought they had it all. And then we
Oh
got
my
a
gosh.
then we got a call back when they got the pathology and everything back, and it was everywhere except for her lungs. And I thought I was going to lose her. And when you think you're going to lose somebody, that really brings us like, yep, someday he's got to be now. It just changed everything, and it got us off center. It got us to where I'm doing this today with the podcast, being a life coach. Became a life coach in 2018, 2019, and traveling because she was on such intense chemo since it was so advanced that we took many trips on the weekends to get her mind off of it. So we both, I mean, she lived through it, but we both said it was a gift because it, we know we know what more is important. I don't know if we know everything that's important, but it definitely changed us 100%.
Yeah. Well,
And
that reminds me of what my son said, actually, to circle back sort of to the beginning of the conversation. My son Eli, when he said that he was actually grateful for the hard things.
yep, yep,
It's interesting, like our culture is kind of suffering adverse. We build these very comfortable lives that
we,
so that we won't have to suffer. But if you ask me, what are the days that I tell stories about? They're the days of like storms at sea and this thing that we survived. The mistakes that we made and the failures that we had are what made us successful. Take Two isn't the first boat that we tried to buy. There was another boat. I know I glazed over that part of the story, but there was another boat, and we had
okay,
gone to look at it and thought we were going to buy this boat, and we were very cautious and we kind of chickened out. And while we were
okay,
debating and deliberating, another couple came in and bought this boat. The
uh,
boat's name was Katie Rose. They bought the boat, they sailed it away, and Jay and I just were left standing there on the empty dock like, did
right,
we,
right,
like opportunity knocked, we didn't open the door, and now this opportunity is gone. And it was that failure that crystallized our dream to do it. And when Take Two
yep.
came along, we were ready. And it came with that amazing name. Like it was our second chance,
It,
like we're all about
so what
it
was
was
where it
like a
came from.
sign. I mean, we knew that we were supposed to do it. So actually, I'm really grateful for the failures. I'm grateful for the hardships. I'm grateful for,
Yeah,
I told you I was grateful for the pandemic because it forced me to hold still long
yeah,
enough to really reflect on what these travels have meant to me and to write this
yep.
book and to fulfill another, item on my bucket list, which was to publish a book. And I might not have ever held still long enough to do
True.
that. So it's really good. Like gratitude is a thing that can really get you through.
Oh,
hard
very.
things. And sometimes you can be thankful in advance. You can say, like, okay, I'm going through this awful thing, but I know that there's a purpose in it, and that this manure will become
Yeah.
fertilizer for
Yeah.
something
Yep.
amazing that will grow.
Exactly.
So I guess that's how I think about my writing is when I'm going through something hard and I'm writing about it, that that crap that I'm in the middle of is
Right.
manure. It is
Yep.
fertilizer
Oh, yeah.
for something beautiful that can grow later. So
Yes.
it sounds like that was cancer for you. Like you had this
Yep. Yep.
horrific close call, and then in the end you're like, wow, it really woke us up and made us pursue a life of
Exactly.
adventure. Thank
Yep.
God we
Everything
had
we're doing.
that terrible experience.
Yeah, and at the moment you would have never guessed it would have ended up like that. So I'm blessed that she's still here and grateful. And yeah, and like you say, I think that a lot of people avoid all that, and it's just like you have to go through that. I mean, it's. I think maybe our society is too, like you were kind of saying, we avoid that too much. It's just and it tells well, you just have to do it. You just got to do the reps. You got to do everything that goes with the journey.
You
So
have to do the hard things. You do
you
have to do
do.
the hard things.
Yeah.
And actually that's what I wrote about. The name of the book that I wrote is Leaving the Safe Harbor: The Risks
Oh,
and Rewards of Raising a Family on a Boat. It's about leaving the safe path.
love it. That is so awesome, and it is so true. I mean that. No. So okay. So I have to ask. So what do you look? What do you see in 5 to 10 years? What is something you haven't done you still want to do?
Well, my husband and I had this amazing, we had a 25th anniversary trip. We went to Greece last year. We went to
Oh,
Athens and Santorini, and it was a lifelong dream. I mean, we had always imagined we would sail there on our own boat.
uh,
We're not, I guess we're not ocean crossers. One of our
I,
kids gets really horrifically seasick. So we did a lot of island hopping. The longest passage we ever did was 8 days. And that was, with my son fully medicated. And he was
mm,
never really happy when we were out in like on the open ocean. So we never
right.
crossed the Pacific or whatever. I felt the call of that crossing when we were in Panama. I was like, let's go through the canal. Let's go.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, and my oldest son was like, "Yeah, let's go." And maybe my youngest two that were raised on the boat were like, "Yeah, let's go." And my second son, Aaron, the one who's now, fixing things, he was like, "Oh no, I'm getting off this boat. If this boat is going across an ocean, I'm leaving."
I don't blame him.
Um but we didn't sail to Greece. We flew, and we had this a wonderful trip together where we hadn't really not been away from our kids for like 20 years.
Okay.
Just the two of us, and I
Wow.
was a little trepidatious. We love each other. Obviously, we've survived living in a small space with 5 children. Clearly, we
Sure.
still like each other. But I was worried, like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to do? Like, is this going to go well? Are we going to have conflict? It was magical, and it was like better than the honeymoon, because at this point we love, have known each other for so long and know our likes and dislikes, and had such a wonderful trip that we started talking again about what we would like to do when the kids are gone. So when you say in the
Sure.
next 5 or 10 years, like at some point we're going to be empty nesters,
You will be. Yeah.
and we get to start imagining what life will be like. And we have, come up with a new bucket list. We're 48 years old, and we've done all the things that we wanted to do. And
Uh-huh.
so we are making a new list. But it always involves travel. It never involves settling down.
That is so cool. No, like travel's the best education too. I mean, it's a win-win all the way around. It's just so awesome. So, okay, since it's a Dreamcatcher podcast, what was a dream that you had when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, I really wanted to travel to Paris. I just thought
Okay.
that going to Paris would be amazing. And my dad was a traveler, a world traveler, and he would bring back gifts from all over the place. And when I was in college, when I was at Middlebury College, I opted to take a semester abroad, and I went and I lived in Paris.
Oh, see, awesome! You did your dream.
I did it. In fact, I don't think there's a single childhood dream. I also had wanted to teach. So I used to teach my younger siblings. I went off to kindergarten, and when I came home from kindergarten, I would teach them whatever I had learned that day. So
Oh, good.
my 3-year-old sister and 2-year-old brother were getting the kindergarten teacher even then. And I actually when I graduated from college, my first job was teaching kindergarten in Atlanta, Georgia, and I taught
Okay.
for 2 or 3 years. And before I started having my own children and transitioned to homeschooling, I had always wanted to be a mom, and I've been very lucky to have been able to fulfill that dream as well. And
Right.
I always wanted to travel, and here I have. I've traveled, and I always wanted to write a book, and I wrote a book.
You
So
are great.
I'm like, if I just really believe, like, if you dream it, you can make it happen.
You can. Yeah, and most people don't believe that. They
I
don't
am
believe
living proof. I'm living
you
proof. You can
are.
do anything you set your mind to.
You can. Yeah, it's all possible. Even the word says it. Like they will say, I'm possible. Don't. It is. And you have to believe you. You definitely have to believe you can, but you can. It's just mindset.
It
And
requires an incredible amount of faith, and like I said, you have to coach yourself through that voice of fear all the time. Brene Brown said it really well. When you're trying to create something, you have that imposter syndrome, and
yeah,
she hears that voice, how dare you? Or who do you think you are?
exactly.
And you
Yes,
have to shut that voice down,
you do.
and you have to really believe, not just believe in yourself, but believe that every human being has something valuable to add. It makes
Amen.
you more compassionate for others and receptive to what others have to offer, but it also helps you with yourself to put yourself out there and say, hey, I have these life experiences, I have this idea, and I want to share it with other people, and to see that as valuable. You
Yes,
do really have to learn to love and value yourself,
you do. Yep,
and to forgive yourself, and to forgive the other people who've hurt you, and to offer them forgiveness. And that path is a path forward, a path into freedom and joy and possibility.
it is. Yeah. So, are you public speaker?
I am. I would love
Okay.
to shift into doing that more. I've done a few, a library author talk. Writing the book has actually been a really interesting pathway into that. I've discovered I love these podcasts. I feel that they're so mutually beneficial. I'm meeting all of these interesting people.
I,
They have a message, I have a message,
yeah.
I can be their interesting guest to help them further
Yep.
their goal. And
Yes.
they that at the end of the podcast they mentioned that I wrote a book, and then people read my book, and we just have this amazing like upward spiral
I hear you.
happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to continue doing that. I've done some local speaking things.
Cool.
But I'm just practicing, I guess, for whatever comes next.
Yeah. No. You will be you're already a great speaker. You will be a great public speaker. So, I was also going to ask, do you do coaching?
I do not, although I have to say there's like this new idea that I have, because I'm now kind of coming to the end of my homeschool journey. My youngest two kids are 16 and 12. They
Uh
don't really need me as much.
huh.
They're also able to do their own laundry and help with meals.
Exactly.
So like my daily grind, which was just keep these people alive.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
For so many years, it was a full-time 24-hour
Yeah.
job, 365 days a year. I'm having more and more free time, and I'm thinking, maybe I could go back to work, but I don't really want a brick and mortar. We don't stay in one place very long. Like, I don't want to make a commitment. What could I do? And all of these people are calling me all the time. I'm answering lots of questions about how to go sailing, and about the boat, and about,
Right.
and so I've begun coaching, but I'm doing it for free, essentially. And I started to think, maybe there's a business here,
Mm-hmm.
even just an initial consult fee. Like, you want to talk about what it's,
Ooh,
what's the nitty gritty of getting your family on a boat. So there
yes.
are people who do that. And I've talked to a friend of mine who does coaching out on the West Coast. And well, that's an ongoing conversation. So coaching is certainly an avenue.
Yeah, and it would be. I would guess there would be a lot of people, wanting to know what you just kind of take it for granted. But if you're just starting out, there's so many things you don't know. So,
I'm
um,
now an expert. I'm an expert at something I never aimed to be an expert at, like how to
I
provision a boat for the Bahamas, how to keep your children alive while you're in the ocean. I mean, like,
yeah,
I have a very unique set of skills.
yeah, awesome skill. So what? I mean, your husband, you guys go. Do you have any job like you speak together or do anything together like that? I mean, is he?
He,
Go
so
ahead.
he's also a dream follower, and so about a year ago we had come back from the Caribbean. We had traveled for a few years in the Caribbean with our family. We came back broke, which is what we had aimed to do, was to slowly go broke while showing our kids the world and having a great time. I think that's what it
Uh-huh.
says on our blog.
Oh,
I told him, I'm like, why couldn't you have written like to slowly grow wealthy while traveling? But we, spent our time and energy and money on experiences, and so we came back. Living in Central America was great because it was so inexpensive that my
okay.
husband could basically work part time and keep the whole thing afloat.
Nice.
Meanwhile, building his own business, a new business that will hopefully set him free from his consulting business. Because one of the things about consulting is that it's still the old time is money
Yeah.
trap, and so you only can make what you can make based on the hours that you can work.
That,
And as a computer consultant, eventually his hands are going to wear out. I mean, he's got carpal tunnel, and he's
that,
spending a lot of time, in front of a screen. And so about a year ago, we had come back broke. He'd earned a bunch of money back, and we were trying to figure out what to do. Should we renovate the boat? Should we go buy a piece of land, a nest egg somewhere? And
right.
he said, what I'd really like to do is quit working
Yeah.
and really focus on building this business. And so we reinvested the income that he had made. We were basically living off of it so he could build a new business that will set him free
Very nice.
from consulting. And that's kind of the future nest egg, would be that it would create residual income without him having to work the way he's working now. And so,
Yeah.
that's I'm kind of along for the ride. This is living here and doing sort of the stable thing, visiting family, raising
Hmm.
the kids,
Yep.
sitting at a dock, which is really hard to just sit in one place when you're on a vessel that moves. We're really sitting here for a couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
But we're in the middle of before you get to the end of the story, in the middle, sometimes it's really messy. When
It is.
we were just learning how to sail and things were broken and the kids were crying, and there were that period of time before we had really achieved success where you're just hoping it all works out.
Oh
So every
yes.
time when you're in the middle of achieving a dream, it isn't all sunshine and roses. It's really difficult. And you're not sure if it's going to be successful.
Yep.
So we're actually in the middle of my husband's dream. He's building his own business, and it's not all sunshine and roses, but if it works out, then we will be able to be freer to travel the way that we would like to travel, which is
That's
really exciting. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, we'll do something else. And our past failures and successes have taught us that we're going to be okay.
yeah. You will be, and the fact that you and your husband both take action, and yeah, that's the way to do it. And what you came up with, what you said, that it's messy. It's very messy. I'm
Very
very.
messy.
It is because everybody's like, well, it just looks like it was so easy for you. I'm just like, and it's like there's so many leveling up. Times it's like you get tried. That's for sure. See if you're
Hmm.
really serious about your dream.
Well, I mean, people who look at it, the armchair sailors is what we call them.
Uh huh.
Probably the people who are reading my book,
Uh
those
huh.
people really like they look at it and go, "Oh, this looks so easy." But then I'm like, "Well, why don't you do it then?" Like it's easy to read a book about it, but it's much harder to sell your house and get rid of all of your belongings and, pull your kids out of school and do something dangerous. It's very, very hard. We
Yeah.
might make it look easy when we're docking the boat and I'm having a little panic attack on the inside where I'm like, oh my gosh, please, let's not hit the wall. Let's not hit that other person's boat.
Yes.
I think if you watched us docking the boat, you would not see what was going on inside my head. You would see a perfectly competent, confident person. I've got the line in one hand, I've got the fender in the other hand. I
Yep.
step, at the exact right moment, I put the fender in the water so that we gently kiss the dock. Nothing gets broken. And then I hand the line to my daughter who's on the dock, and she ties the boat up with the perfect knot, and she just knows how to do a cleat hitch. And from the outside, someone would say, oh my gosh, they have it so together. They're so good at that. But they didn't see all the other times. Well, they
Oh yeah.
don't see the panic in my head, and they also don't see all the other times that things did not go according
Yeah.
to plan.
Yeah. I don't. And I know
So
that.
you have to live that experience.
Oh yes. And the feeling that I'm going to be sick. Just
Yep.
like I have to move forward, but this is uh sometimes it takes every ounce of your your being to go forward. That's for sure. Or the nights where you wake up in a cold sweat because
Yes. What are
yeah,
we doing? Why are we doing this?
yeah.
Who thought that this was a good idea?
Oh yeah, yeah. Very much right.
Uh,
Like It's just
Oh,
like
that's great.
something about having a traditional job, but nope, don't want to go back there. Never ever on that. But
Yeah, I mean, we still have to live. That's true for adventurers. It's true for the normal people. It's what keeps
yep,
most people in a safe and a safe life is you do have to eat and you do have to pay the rent and you do have to put your kids through school, whether you're,
you do.
private school, public school, or homeschool. You have the practical nitty-gritty of every day. Those
Yep,
things have to be taken care of. And you do wonder, like, how are we gonna do this and how are we gonna do that? And you have to walk it out day to day.
you definitely
And
do.
yeah, and not think too hard about the what ifs.
Yeah,
You just have to keep going. But, you can't ignore those unless you're independently wealthy or you've inherited,
yeah,
millions of dollars. You really still have to think. You can go on an adventure, but you still have to think about the daily
yeah.
the
However,
daily needs.
to get done, yes, yeah, no, it is. But
Maybe that's the biggest encouragement in these conversations is, someone might look at you and say, "Oh, it looks so nice. It must be so nice for you to
yeah,
travel the way that you do with your wife. Aren't you guys lucky?" Or
yep,
they could look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, you live on a sailboat. That must be so nice to live on vacation all the time." But this
yep.
conversation, it's very real. Like we have to think about all those same things
You
that the
do.
armchair sailor has to think about. You just have to take action. That's the difference between me and
You,
someone, the other neurotic housewives is that we acted despite our fear.
you did very, very
And
much.
so did you. And so
Yep,
did you.
yep. No, you just got to do it. You just have to take the action on anything you're going to do. So whether it's losing,
My kids are really funny. They know me pretty well at this point. And we went ziplining in the jungle when we were in
oh,
Bocas del Toro, Panama, and I'm not a thrill seeker, as you wouldn't guess that because I live on a sailboat with children, but I'm actually not a thrill seeker. I don't like to jump off the high dive off the back of
me either.
our arch, so I don't do cliff jumping. I don't do any kind of daredevil things. My kids do. They're fearless, but I'm not. I'm a big chicken. And so we wanted to go zip lining, and the kids had gotten me to go by saying, when you're on your deathbed, are you going to regret that you didn't go zip lining? And they've got me up in this 200-foot tree in the jungle, all geared up. And they're like, okay, mom, all you have to do is let go. And I'm standing on this platform. I'm like, why would you jump out of a perfectly good tree? Like, I don't. And that's how they get me to do things sometimes. They'll be like, "Are you going to have
Uh,
a regret?" They know that I'm
so
regret driven. Like, I don't want to have any regrets.
oh,
They still
I
haven't gotten me to go downhill skiing. They love to ski and
either.
snowboard.
Nope.
I like to cross country ski, and not just because it's safer, like on the knees, but
Right.
because I love being in the woods by myself,
Yeah.
and I love that it's not cold because you're working
Yeah.
hard and you're sweating. But they
Yeah.
still haven't been able to get me to go downhill skiing with
I,
with their little the threats of regret.
yep. You. There's something. Nope.
Some
I.
thrills I just don't need. I don't need to check everything off.
Yeah. It's like my wife. I actually want to skydive. My wife's the same way. She's like, why would anybody want to jump out of a perfectly good plane?
Perfectly good airplane. I'm with her. So you want to do that? Is that on your bucket list?
Yeah. Yep. And she said she'd be waiting for me on the ground.
Are
It's
you going
like,
to do it? When are you going to
yeah,
do it? When's your next birthday?
December 8th.
You should do it.
Okay. Yeah, I should just do it. I mean, I've been looking for people to do it, but nobody wants to do it with me.
Oh,
So
you might have to go alone. That's even more scary.
that is.
Do you have a sibling? Do any of your siblings have adventurous
I
lives?
um I do. I have a sister, younger sister. I will have to ask her. I don't think I've ever brought that conversation up to her. So she
Yeah,
probably
ask your sister.
that would be
Don't let
awesome.
her don't let her pack the parachute. I don't know. I wouldn't let any of my siblings pack the parachute.
No, especially we get along great now, but when we were younger, we did not. So I would definitely not. But
Yeah,
no,
I'm friends with my siblings now too.
yeah.
That's
So
good. Well, I hope
I,
to hear that you've gotten to fulfill that little wish. I have no wish to jump out of an airplane, but I have kids that would like to do it. I think you should do it.
I think so too. This is a goal that I'm going to have to put on right here. That's going to have to go forward with the date and time, even if it's not.
Ooh.
Because in the winter here, I don't know. We do sometimes have nice weather in December. Maybe a blizzard, I could jump out of a plane. That
Well,
might
you
be.
don't have to do it there. I
Yeah.
mean, you can do it
Oh yeah.
anywhere.
Florida.
So my son was here for his I think 21st birthday, and he had the opportunity to go. We offered to pay for him to go skydiving here
Okay.
because it's like beautiful, up above the water in the Florida
Like
Keys.
that.
And he had the opportunity to go lobstering the same day, and he opted to go lobstering. Although he said it was a tough choice. He loves to be underwater, so he
Okay.
opted for water instead of air.
Did
But I
it.
think he'll do it. I think he'll do it. So pick a cool destination and do it in a beautiful
Oh,
place.
Florida. I mean, I've even got my Florida cap on today.
Oh,
The
I
Herbie.
see that. I know I was looking at your awesome like this I'm looking at this gorgeous sunset from the
The,
bill of your cap. That's
oh yeah,
so cool.
I actually got it in St. Pete when we were down there in January. So
Oh, it's beautiful there in January.
so that I love Florida. I could definitely. I don't know about summertime when it's hurricane season, but I sure love it the rest of the time. So
I'll tell you what's nice about Florida in the off season, and I remember this as a kid growing up in Naples. Yes, it's muggy and buggy, but the tourists all go home, the snowbirds all go home, and you get
true.
like the beach to yourself, and you have this really nice, quiet, quiet
I,
time. Yeah, nobody else wants to be here. It's really hot, and but there are some nice things about it, like lobstering in the summer in the Keys is a
I would
really fun thing to do.
no, I would definitely. I mean, I tell my wife that I'm a frustrated beach bum anyway, so I'm always happy where there's sand and a palm tree or something like that. So,
Yeah,
uh,
well, maybe you need to plan a birthday trip and go skydiving. Look at me, I'm dreaming for you. You don't even You're talking to the wrong person. I will encourage you to do any dangerous thing that you say
yeah,
you want to do.
that is so cool. I think that would be a. I mean, yeah, that would be an awesome birthday gift to myself, and
Okay,
something
you're
that
gonna have to come back and tell me whether if you made a plan and whether you did it or not. I need to know.
that's one thing. If I say I'm going to do it, I will do it. That is one thing. I
That's a big deal about the
yeah
verbal commitment, right? Like
yeah
if I start talking about something, that's dangerous because I'm gonna do it. Some
yep
people talk but don't take action, but
yeah.
usually I don't want to make a commitment unless I think that I'm going to do it. I don't want to be a liar, and
I hear you.
your word is your bond, and if I
Yeah
start talking about something,
yep
watch out. I would
yep.
rather I would rather not say anything than to say something and then not do it. So if I
I,
start talking about it, it's going to happen.
and sometimes I force myself by putting it out there to people and the universe. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
out there now. So
I
you
made
got
a verbal commitment. That's
yeah
right. I've got to do it now.
yes. So awesome. So Tanya, anything else that you would like the audience to know today?
I love that you ask a question about about childhood dreams. I think every human being has them. I think they kind of get squashed
Like,
in the mill as you grow up, and you have to figure out how to take care of those daily needs. But I would definitely encourage your listeners to mine their childhood dreams for something that they want to do before they die, and then go do it or die trying. I mean,
yeah
there's
yeah
nothing wrong with an unfulfilled dream if you're on the way to doing it.
yeah
But to be willing to take the risk to leave the safe path and
yeah.
have an
I
adventure.
Yes, amen. Yes, it is. So on that, I love that. That's great. So it's a great way to. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Dreamcatcher podcast. I would love to do a follow up sometime, and if you would like to do that, come back on the podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe
Okay,
after you've had your daring jump.
okay. I will make a note of that. I will definitely.
Sure thing.
You can, and well, I will be here. It's going. It will go all well.
Yes, and have a wonderful trip to Italy, by the way, and congratulations on that
No,
achievement of just even being able to
looking.
break loose and go do that. Have a wonderful, wonderful time.
Thank you. Yeah, we leave in a day and a half. So
Yay!
but well, thanks for joining us on the podcast. And I great. It's been great conversation. I love talking to you. So and look forward to the next time. So thanks again.
Bye bye.
Thanks.